Well, hello everybody again, and to you in Nipawin, thanks for joining us today. It's always good to have you here. We are starting a series called SoulSearch, and this first sermon is really going to be more of an introduction to the next 7 or 8, I think there are. So lots of reasons in this, I suppose, for you to keep coming and hear some of these other things. Lots of baiting of the hook by me to ensure that we actually get to go through this process. So it's going to be like, why are we doing this? How is this going to work? What's happening? Those sorts of things. So let me start with why. When I came back from a sabbatical, some of you know that I was on a sabbatical from June until October of last year. When you come back from sabbatical, lots of people come and fill you in on what's been going on. And lots of good things, but a lot of things that people felt needed attention. And so one of the things I heard was, we need to do a marriage series. Like, we need to talk about marriage pretty quick. Lots of struggling marriages, lots of marriages that could be struggling down the road, lots of, please, let's have a 6-week marriage series that changes everything. Or maybe it was parenting. While you were away, there's just like these kids and they're not doing good and parents don't know and it's kind of like a cultural default. Kids just turn out these ways and we need to have some good biblical principles about what it means to actually train children in ways that shape them and form them to love the right things so that life flows out of them effortlessly. Let's do a parenting series. And then the finance department, mainly saying, we need a sermon series on money. We need to, we're looking at a rough year end and maybe it's nothing that 6 good weeks of teaching the troops what's right will fix. Well, all those things are good, except I have no faith in any of them. Not to say I don't have faith in sermons, that would sort of make you feel like you're wasting your time. But what I'm saying is most marriages don't need another book. Because if there's still something wrong with you that lets the techniques that you're learning from this book just get better at manipulating somebody, that's not helpful. If there's no real desire inside of you to love and to reconcile and to serve, then learning techniques for how to reconcile, love, and serve don't do you any good. If you can't stay patient, if you can't keep your voice calm, if you can't think clearly when your kids are going a little squirrely, it does not do you a lot of good to have somebody say, you know what you need to do as a parent is be patient. Be really patient. Or with money, if you're caught up in the things that a lot of us are caught up in and just, the desire for more, and it's hard to say no for more, and experiences bring joy, and experiences cost money, and all these sort of this storyline that we just live in without thinking about too much, to have somebody say, be generous, prioritize the kingdom of God and eternal things with your money, doesn't do really anything. So as I talked with the board and other people about, so what actually are we needing to talk about, it probably wasn't marriage, it probably wasn't parenting, it wasn't money. We had to go deeper. And so we thought about things like identity, which is getting closer to it because you naturally live out of and make choices out of who you think you are. But then it got deeper than that, and we ended up on the soul. Interesting that when I went on sabbatical, one of the prayers for the board was for Nathan to get healthy and to know his identity better, which I thought was really pleasant and kind of them, and exactly the sort of thing you would pray for a pastor on sabbatical. I didn't really understand what I might be in for. The principles that we're going to go through in this sermon series are all things that I have lived in the last 2 years. Some of them before sabbatical, some of them during sabbatical, and some of them just as recently as like 2 months ago. So there's a bit of this that isn't just the big reason, is that the soul matters more than learning techniques for how to do life. You have to have a healthy soul. That's the big reason, but there's maybe a smaller, more personal reason for me, is that when Jesus does things for you that are so powerful and transformative, you don't want to wait to tell people how it works, what can change for them, what changed for you. And it's funny because from a leadership perspective, what you never want to do is have something that just is brand new and then try and share it with a whole bunch of people. You got to live in it for a little while. I don't want to waste my time, and I don't want to waste your time. Because if God has done some things to make me healthier, I think healthy is maybe a dangerous word, but much, much, much healthier. And then I come back from sabbatical and I'm praying, and it didn't all happen on sabbatical, but I come back from sabbatical and I'm praying, God, what do you want me to focus my attention on? And he says, team health. So I start to do that, imagining the team being the staff team, maybe the elders, and so we start to raise the bar and clarify how we need to behave, the things that we're aiming for, the passions that are driving us. And in that process, some more healing starts to come. But then I'm starting to realize the team is not me and the team. This is the team. This is the team that needs to be healthy. And until we're healthy, we're going to look at our 4 big prayers, our desire to turn the world upside down, for a church to be 1/3 First Nations people, or to represent the demographic of our community. In Nipawin, the population breakdown is different, but the principle is that the church in here shouldn't look different than the population in the town, rich, poor, all different ethnicities represented well. One-touch healing, that people can come here and be freed from physical and emotional distress simply by meeting Jesus. That the towns that we are living in would win awards, that this much yeast would affect the whole loaf in such profound ways that people notice what's happening. We become like a city shining on a hill. And then finally, that stuff is so good that it can't just stay in Portage and Nipawin, it has to spread through different sites. If you're not a healthy person, if Jesus has not fixed your soul, those prayers are going to be held at arm's length, and they're going to be very suspicious. You're not going to be able to enter into them, because here's how it would shake down if you're honest. God can't do that stuff because he hasn't done things in me that would make it seem like he's the kind of God that can actually do that stuff. See how that works? God's not going to do for all this stuff. He's generally impotent because he hasn't really changed me that much, so how would I ever dream about him actually doing these great big things? So what can camouflage as this rational discernment about prayer is actually just a sense that God's actually pretty darn small. When God is pretty darn small, it's a sign that your soul is damaged. So there's big reasons. The soul matters. It's the part of you that shapes everything. And then there's little reasons, what he's done for me, I want to share with you. Dallas Willard talks about the soul. He puts it this way. This is such a good quote. If your soul is healthy, no external circumstance can destroy your life. If your soul is healthy, nothing can happen to you that will destroy your life. However, if your soul is unhealthy, no external circumstance can redeem it. So no matter how good it gets outside of you, if your poor little soul is broken, it's not going to matter. A healthy soul is absolutely critical. Now, when we're talking about a soul, I want to be clear that what we're talking about is not the part of you that goes to heaven to be with Jesus when you die. That's a different approach to soul. What we're talking about when we talk about the soul in these sermons is a part of you that, let me put it this way. We'll actually skip those verses for now, and I'll get into what the soul is. You are aware of certain parts of yourself. You're aware of your body. You're aware as you get older of how it's failing you, of how it hurts. When you're younger, it's just sort of a novelty, and it's a great thing, I suppose. And your body does a bunch of things you don't have to think about. It's your little power pack that just ties your shoes without you thinking about it. It drove you here without you actually thinking about it too much. It does a ton of stuff without you actually thinking because you've trained it to do that. Some of the responses that you've trained it are helpful. Some of the responses are not so helpful. It's your body. You also are aware of your willpower. You're aware of the chocolate cake sitting in front of you. You're aware that you probably don't need to have 2 pieces of the chocolate cake. Then there are 2 empty plates after 10 minutes, and you realize willpower is not really a strength necessarily for you, but you understand what it is. It's the ability to say yes or no to something. And then what we'll call your mind. And this is not just your thoughts, we'll park your feelings there too. So you're thinking about things, you're feeling things, and you're aware of that. When you're feeling sad, you know you're feeling sad. You might not always know exactly what you're feeling, but you know you're feeling something. You can confused sometimes, but at least you know, like, you're aware of your thoughts. So you're aware of your mind, you're aware of your body, you're aware of your will. But you're not necessarily aware of your soul in the sense that we're talking about today. Your soul in the sense we're talking about today, and it's not like we're just making this up. I would say this is what your soul is. Your soul is the under the surface operating system of you. It's what coordinates your will, it's what coordinates your body, it's what coordinates your mind and makes it work together. And so you can have two people in the same situation, receiving the same stimuli, and because one has a healthy soul, they're reacting different, they're processing different than the other person. But here's the thing with the soul, because it's subconscious, both of them think they're doing it well, that they're both healthy. So the person in line at Sobeys who is angrily trying to hold it together as somebody's got a Ziploc baggie counting out pennies and matching them with coupons actually thinks they're having a normal reaction. I shouldn't say normal, a healthy one. This is what every healthy person would feel, is this seething frustration. The person who is not really even noticed and they're just chatting away also believes they're having a healthy reaction. One soul is broken and one's soul isn't. So think of it as a subconscious operating system. Another good image for the soul is to think of it as the wellspring of your life. Picture yourself as your body, your mind, and your will as being your town. And your town is fed by a spring. But if that spring is polluted, and you don't know it's polluted, every single thing that you eat and grow and smell, and I mean, when the water is tainted, the entire system is messed up and compromised in some way. When your soul, which you're not always aware of, is it healthy or not, is flowing into your town and it's messed up, you're going to have issues, you're going to have problems. Now, it's really difficult to diagnose soul problems. We're pretty good at diagnosing, if we're honest, what we feel we need. But we would say, I'm struggling with anger or something like that, right? I had a conversation with somebody who said they're struggling with alcohol. And it was like, no, you're actually not struggling. You're happily giving in. But at least they were aware that the issue they wanted to address was this addiction, this reliance, and they had the sense that their life would be better without it. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is something that you actually think is good about you. Something that you actually think is healthy, something that you actually think is normal. Very, very hard to diagnose the soul without Jesus' help. Very tough. We're going to try it here for a little while. I mean, hopefully Jesus will help us, but we're going to try it, just me giving you examples and you seeing exactly how this could drive you crazy with paralyzing introspection if you went down this route without Jesus' help. With soul issues, you're not saying, oh, I'm struggling with this. You're actually saying, I'm pretty good at this. So, you're really good at smelling a rat. I've got a good sniffer. I know when something's suspicious. I can just tell when something's off. That's be a good thing. So there's a new person at work, and boy, they just seem really ambitious. Seem like they're not about the company necessarily. It's like they just want to move forward, and you have no idea that that's actually coming out of is a wounded soul that is so threatened and jealous by somebody, so it has to say this other stuff. So here's what you're not doing. You're not going, well, geez, I'm really jealous of that person, but I can't say that out loud, and I really want to harm them, but I can't say I'm jealous and want to take them down a peg. You're actually not aware that that's happening. You actually believe that what's happened is you have really discerned something that a normal human being wouldn't get, and you're going to act on it. So it's actually something good in your mind, but it's something broken in the soul. Or maybe what you're good at is giving advice. Somebody comes to you, you got lots to say, you got good things, you can phrase it in a way they hadn't heard before, and this is something that you really is good about you. what you're maybe not realizing is that your soul is wounded. It's so full of shame. You just shame inside. And you have to be the helper every time. Because if you're not the helper, you can't stay hidden. Right? You have to, your advice is actually just static. You're basically, all your advice is, don't look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me, please don't look at me, please don't look at me. You have no idea. You think you're just being helpful. Next one. You're good at offering support. Supportive person. Empathetic, always there for somebody, not realizing that your soul is wounded. You're actually just terrified of being alone. And if you don't respond to that person's need or are there for them, you're scared you're going to be just absolutely disconnected. And so it's coming out of a wounded soul and you have no idea that you're scared. Maybe you're just good at being level-headed. You're just a thinker. You're kind of calm. That's just who you are. Maybe your soul is wounded and numb. Just actually wounded so bad that the nerves are calloused over and you're incapable of feeling emotion. Maybe you're a theological watchdog. Don't know your soul's wounded. You think you're just actually keeping things lined up scripturally, just making sure we're talking about the truth, making sure the sheep are getting fed. But really what's going on is a wounded soul that believes it can only be loved if it's right all the time. So maybe if you don't know much about theology or church life and you're wondering about that one, maybe if you're just critical. You're like, I'm good at actually seeing what's going on and knowing what the right way to go. Maybe it comes out of a wound, a soul wound that would say, I can only be loved if I'm right. Maybe you're somebody who can just motivate themselves. I'm internally motivated, and that's what I like about me. I don't need external motivation. I can just do it all on my own. And you're processing that as good, but you don't know that inside you're just hollow and your soul is aching because you need to be successful. Like some people need oxygen. Or maybe you're a hard worker. Don't know that there's a soul wounded somewhere that's just saying, don't stop moving ever because you'll be scared of what catches you if you do. Don't stop moving ever. And that's sitting there and you have no idea. You're just a hard worker. Maybe you've got a sense of justice. Somebody's been wounded. Something's not right. And you move in. And you like that about yourself, that you defend the defenseless. Or maybe your soul is just so wounded, you're just so angry. This is a place that you can act on that. Finally, maybe you're a planner. You're an organizer. Or your soul is worried sick about losing control, and your planning is simply just a controlling mechanism to try and keep the chaos at bay. So wasn't that fun? All right? And so you can see how if you're actually taking this seriously, you're like going, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't maybe, why am I saying this sermon? What's really, right? So you could just chase it all the way down to the bottom and then realize I'm not at the bottom yet and go, right. Here's the thing about Jesus. He sees right to the bottom. And if you ask him what's really going on, he will tell you. He will. The lies that hide the wounds of the soul are some of the very best you'll ever encounter. Because the father of lies, which is like saying the enemy is the origin of lies, but the father of lies is also pretty good at lies. If he can get you messed up about your soul, then he's got you at a place where even the good things you do get strangely filtered and cause pain. So a damaged soul, reading the Bible actually doesn't help that much. Because the good stuff will come in and hit the filter of the soul and it'll go in a strange direction. Some of us, our damaged souls, have us already going, boy, I sure hope so and so is here this morning. That's a soul thing. There's this stupid cartoon clip on Simpsons that I don't have in my notes because I wasn't going to say it, but it'll give us a nice little lighthearted moment in a heavy sermon. Some old geezer is going to be working with the kids in the classroom. This is probably before the Plan to Protect days, and he's got a paddle, and he's explaining to the kids everything that's going to result in a paddling. He says, talking, that's a paddling. Putting up your hand, that's a paddling. Eating your lunch, and it just goes on and on. That's a paddling. Throw a dart at anywhere in your life and it'll land on something that's a soul issue. That's a soul issue. There's a reason it wasn't in my notes. So you can see how, we'll go back on the script, you can see how this is the domain of Jesus. I would actually put it this way. Caring for your soul is the exclusive job of the Trinity. That's too fancy. Only Jesus. This is why Jesus says in Matthew 11:28, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke, my way of life, upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." Jesus never tells us to go anywhere else to get help for our soul. There is nowhere else that can help your soul. There are places you can go that improve your willpower. There are places then that would give you emotional control. There are places where you can train your body better. Only Jesus does the soul, because only Jesus can tell what's really going on and bring it to the surface for you in just the right way at just the right time. Week by week, we are going to be doing some extraction work. We're going to be mining the soul. We're going to be emptying the suitcase of the soul. Finding out what's going on there, finding out what went wrong inside of us, and just piece by piece pulling things out, and then getting ready to get filled. Now, Jesus doesn't do this all on his own. He's the driver, but he needs you along with him. That's just how he works in everything. Here's the steps we're going to take. Next week, I'm going to talk about securing your identity. Ray's going to be preaching that one. Next week is repentance. The next week is breaking family sin patterns. That's an interesting one, because sin patterns, we understand the tendency you would have if your dad was a drinker for you to struggle with that, if your dad was angry for you to struggle with that, but there's some things that fly under the surface. Favoritism. That can feel good, especially if you were the favorite. That can warp your soul. Maybe you're in a family that quit stuff. But they didn't call it quitting stuff. They called it boundaries, or they called it wisdom, or they called it priorities. You're just a bunch of quitters. And that warps your soul. Maybe there's a sense of pride in your family, but it can be warped into a sense of superiority. So there's things that carry on that you have a tendency, you already have a soul bent towards, that are hereditary, that were part of your spiritual DNA, that Jesus will bring to the surface. We'll learn about forgiving others the next week. One of the things we'll learn is that one of the best ways to forgive others is pray blessings on them. So much better than, Lord, help me forgive them, is bless them. I had a girl when I was in age 9 or 10. We house sit for their family for 2 weeks. Their mom and dad off, they went to Philippines or something like that, and we were house sitting for them. And she was a very structured girl, but a couple years younger than me, really relied on routine in the home. And me at 10 or 11 really wasn't so concerned about keeping the routines of her parents in line. And so that's not where the spatula goes. Who cares? I put the spatula here. That's not how we hang the toilet paper. Who cares? And so there's 1,000 of these things that are driving this poor girl nuts. She gets a huge, huge thing against me. Huge for 8. Her family's suggestion is write Nathan's name on a chalkboard in the kitchen. Nathan. And every day when you think about him, just erase a little bit so that you can forgive him. It took like 2.5 years, and I would get updates. Nathan, I got rid of that last N, or the first N, Natha. Oh, Well, good. Glad we're moving in the right direction. Maybe by the time I'm 25, we'll be good. If her parents had said every night, pray that God would bless Nathan in amazing and rich ways, I bet her heart changes in 2 weeks instead of 2 years. Next is healing wounds. You're most sensitive at the place that you got hurt. Maturity stunted at the place where trauma happens. So we have to go back. We have to look at those wounds. We have to let Jesus heal them. Overcoming fears. And then finally, number 7, deliverance. The breaking of demonic strongholds. So those first 6, they've been part of my last 2 years. That last one, that's a pretty new thing for me. Very powerful. Very exciting. I can tell you that you will experience the power of Jesus in ways that you have never experienced. And you will find a freedom you have never experienced if you walk through the first 6 before you get to 7. If you just show up for 7, that's just spiritual voyeurism. That's just being a tourist who wants to see some funky spiritual things. Doesn't have anything to do with vulnerability. So what do you have to do in this series? Well, you have to pay attention to what's going on inside of you. How have you felt this morning? How's your self-awareness? Have you been defensive? Not me. This is weird. You only had one verse up there the whole time. That's not probably scriptural. You suspicious? Have you already figured this out? What if you prayed about that stuff for a while instead of just decided on it? What if the voices in your head that you just accepted? Now, a voice that you've accepted in your head usually isn't one that you hear audibly anymore. If you hear voices in your head, like audibly, you're probably still pushing against them. But there's things in your head that have shaped you that you just think are normal, that don't have to be there. So you have to be open to self-awareness in a new way. You have to trust Jesus. You'll need to do this in community. Those of you who are in house churches are already farther ahead with that. But you'll want to grab, if you're not in a house church, 1 or 2 people to do this with. Every week there's going to be questions online, short summaries of the sermons, places to dive in, to talk about what happened in your home of origin, what conversations you need to have with grandma to figure out what's what. Guidance that way. You also are going to need to have no secrets at all. It just can't move forward for you if you're holding something back. You have to lay yourself bare in front of Jesus and in front of the people that you're talking to. That's why maybe in house church, if your house church is 12 people, why don't you break into groups of 3 for the evening in the same home maybe? Just so it's easier to be really honest. When you're talking about things and being really honest and you go, this is what will happen. You go, maybe it's something like this. And you'll be waiting for everybody to say, no, not that. And they'll all look at you like, dear God, that goes on in your head? Really? Oh, wow. It's good that came into the light. That's not good. So it'll be humbling when the things that you think are normal and healthy about you are actually exposed as problematic. And then in the evenings on Sunday, starting next week, from 7 to 9, we're going to be having prayer times here. So next week, when Ray talks about identity, that evening will be specifically about praying through identity issues, and whoever shows up, we'll do that with, and we'll do that together. And that'll happen every Sunday, except for this one in the series. And then after that, we'll have a 24/7 prayer, and we will begin to move into some of the deliverance stuff that will be so freeing. Now, here's what we're learning in this. Let me summarize our morning. I'll put it this way. The Bible doesn't advertise. That doesn't clarify it quite yet. Let me clarify. We're used to advertisements where the burger never quite looks that good. The home never quite makes you that happy. The car never quite is so shiny. It never quite delivers. And we take that into the Bible and we assume it's the same. That if there is this picture of humanity that is so healthy that it can bring health to the planet, which is the picture in the Bible, there is a type of human being whose soul is cleansed, who is filled with the Spirit, who is filled with immense power, that they can actually heal the planet. There's no way to escape that that's what the Bible's saying. Unless you think the Bible's advertising just to get you to sign on. The Bible doesn't advertise. The Bible tells you the truth about who you are and what's possible. And as you move into this process of getting to know who Jesus is and finding out who you are, you'll begin to come alive. I'm going to invite the band out to lead us through communion. You'll have a PowerPoint there to help you guide through that. Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and broken, and you will find rest for your souls." As we come to the bread and the cup, we are in a real physical way coming to Jesus. And I would invite you to make this your statement about how vulnerable you're going to be before Him in this series. Your coming forward is also you saying, yeah, I'm ready. I'm not going to get into the advertising stuff. I want to be so close to you that I'm actually taking you into myself here with the wine and the juice and the bread. So not routine, but rather I'm actually coming to find rest for my soul, and I'm anticipating rest for my soul, and I'm going to come to you, Jesus, in a way that gives you access so that I can find it. So with that in mind, come and receive the elements, and then you can return to your seat and we'll enjoy them together.